So, a fresh new week has arrived, and here on this channel, that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend, I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week has been a week where we've seen some teams' disaster years get worse, other surprising teams have continued to make positive runs, and the trade deadline continues to inch closer, so we definitely have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now. So if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. PrizePicks is a skill-based, real-money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2 to 6 players and guess if they will hit more or less than their projection, and if you get it right, you can win up to 25 times your original entry. Obviously, we're all basketball fans here, but PrizePicks has almost every sport you can think of available to choose from and play. To add to the fun, they also offer frequent bonuses, discounts, and weekly promotions such as Taco Tuesday and Flex Friday, plus so many more specialty free spaces to watch for throughout the year, so you don't want to miss those. I personally will be playing Nikola Jokic to score over 25.5 points, Anthony Simons to score over 22.5 points, and Bruce Brown to make over 0.5 threes for tonight's slate of games. To sign up, go down to the link in the description and use promo code REFERENCE when you sign up to get a deposit match bonus of up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from XSpaz, and he says that there isn't a single trade that could save the Warriors season right now. So with this take, I'm going to be addressing it under the guise that the idea here is that there is no realistic trade that they could make to save their season right now, because obviously if they were to somehow pull off a miracle and acquire a superstar with the assets that they have, then that would change things, but that's also just not happening or even remotely realistic. So back in reality, we see the Warriors sitting in lowly 12th place in the Western Conference standings, which isn't even good enough for a spot in the play-in tournament, which is as close to a rock-bottom moment as it gets for a group with as lofty of expectations as the Warriors have. Clearly, they're getting awfully close to the point where some really uncomfortable conversations need to be had about some of their core veterans that have been there through it all, and they may not like the answers to those questions. Klay Thompson has obviously been huge during all of their championship runs and was one of the best shooters to ever step on a basketball court at his peak, but in the year 2024, he is an absolute shell of his former self. He's an unreliable scorer inside of the three-point arc with pretty dreadful shot selection, and that results in wasted possessions, and he's no longer the lockdown perimeter defender he was in his prime either. Draymond Green is an all-time great defensive talent, but at this point in his career, he's more of an out-of-control distraction with a podcast than he is an impactful NBA player. Andrew Wiggins has been criticized for being out of shape this year, and his shot has been nowhere to be found all year long. The young guys are frustrated with the favoritism showed to these veterans too, even when those veterans are struggling in games. Steph Curry's patience is clearly being tested with every loss, and moves seem inevitable, but as this take states, I'm honestly not sure what kind of move is even out there that could turn things around for them. Guys like Klay Thompson and Andrew Wiggins are not going to net you anything massive in return because their value is in the gutter right now. Nobody will want to touch Draymond with a 10-foot pole after all of his outbursts, and if the solution is to trade away some of their young talent, then you're tripling down on a core that is well over the hill, which I don't think is the answer either. It's hard to write off a Steph Curry-led Warriors team, but I just can't imagine them making a deep run this year, regardless of any move they pull off. The next take we'll be discussing today comes to us from User, and he says that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be the frontrunner for MVP right now because of what he's accomplishing with less help than the other MVP candidates. This year's MVP race has a lot of the same old familiar faces at the top, as Joel Embiid is arguably playing the best basketball of his career, Nikola Jokic is still a walking triple-double threat, and Giannis Antetokounmpo's production stacks up with almost anyone else's as well. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an interesting newcomer to the the conversation this year, and honestly, he probably has a better case than many realize. First and foremost, the Thunder are tied with the Timberwolves for the best record in the Western Conference right now, and one of the first boxes you have to check to enter this conversation is having to be impacting winning at a high level. SGA is clearly doing that. The next box that needs to obviously be checked has to be elite individual production on this winning team, and Shai is doing some unbelievable things across the board. He's averaging 31.5 points, which ranks 3rd best in the NBA this year, and he's also putting up about 6 assists and 6 rebounds per game as well, while shooting the ball a highly efficient 56% from the field. Saying he's doing it quietly may not be the right way to phrase it, but he's having one of the most unstoppable scoring seasons we've seen from a guard in a very long time, and it really doesn't feel like he's getting enough attention for it. With all of this being said though, does that mean he's the MVP frontrunner this year? Well, I'm not quite sure I'm ready to go that far just yet. The two regulars at the top, Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, are still having unreal seasons of their own, and with the Nuggets just one single game back of the Thunder in the standings, it's not like SGA's impact on winning is by some crazy wide margin. I'm also not sure I can get behind the notion from the original take that SGA has less help than the other contenders in the conversation, because of the fact of the matter is that the Thunder's young core are all blossoming, so just because you personally may not be familiar with the talent of guys like Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey, Isaiah Joe, and plenty more, doesn't mean that they're not great in their roles on that team. If one thing's for sure though, it's that it's going to be a fun MVP race to follow during the second half of this season. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from That's Money, and he says that the Jazz are sneakily figuring things out this season and very well could sneak into the playoffs this year. In case you haven't been paying attention, the Jazz are currently in 9th place in the Western Conference standings, which is not only firmly in contention for a spot in the play-in tournament, but they're also knocking on the door of an actual playoff spot. With a record 1 game above 500 right now, they are easily exceeding all expectations that anyone had for them this year, and most expected them to be tanking near the bottom of the standings, but they had other ideas. Lauri Markkanen has obviously been leading the way for them scoring the ball after breaking out as an all-star last year, but they're really starting to find an identity as a group that has been playing at a much faster pace overall in the last few months. They also play incredibly hard every night, reminiscent to last year's Thunder team, who were never an easy win despite not quite getting over the hump yet, and after rattling off wins against the Bucks, 76ers, Lakers, and Nuggets in the month of January, it's time to start taking the Jazz more seriously. There were once rumors that they could be sellers at the trade deadline, with players like Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, and possibly even Lauri Markkanen being available to be traded for, but those rumors seem to be completely dead now, with all of this winning going on. And if they do decide to keep things together and maybe even become buyers at the trade deadline, then it definitely won't be easy for teams like the Lakers and Warriors to surpass them in the standings for those final play-in spots, who are currently behind the Jazz. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.